So, welcome. It's lovely to have you with us. If you could introduce yourself and tell us which subjects you did at Sixth Form College.
My name is Emily Rook and I studied drama, dance, music at A level and French AS level.
Amazing. Gosh, that must have kept you pretty busy.
It was quite busy. Yeah, there were always rehearsals, always practices. It was quite intense, yeah, but it was fun.
That's fantastic. And now tell us what you did after Sixth Form College.
I went to the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, which is a conservatoire in Cardiff, and I studied for a BMUS, a bachelor's in music, specialising in vocal performance.
That is amazing. So, did you know about conservatoires before you came to Sixth Form College? How did you find the process of applying?
I didn't know about conservatoires before college, before Sixth Form College. I only knew about universities, and it was just because I got really involved in the music department that I heard the word floating around. And I applied to universities and conservatoires because that is allowed. And I didn't know whether I'd get into a conservatoire because it kind of was put up as this big prestigious thing that not many people get into. So I wanted to keep my options open as much as possible. I think I applied to about 5 or 6 unis and 3 conservatoires. Yeah, it was super easy, and you do the same thing as you do for university basically, and you write a personal statement and all of your exam results and things like that, your GCSEs. The only difference I think is, especially if you're applying for a performance course, that you have to go in for an audition at some point.
And then what stage was the audition at? So, was that during the second year?
Yes, it was November, December time.
Fab. And so you went for vocal, and then what did they expect at the interview? How did that go? Did you go down to Cardiff? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I went down to Cardiff, and each conservatoire has a different layout for the interview and the audition, and it can be different for undergrad and postgrad, and also different for composers and performers. So as a performer, if you audition as a performer at Cardiff, it was a 2-round situation. You have prepared 3 pieces. You go in and you have an accompanist who works with you on your pieces before you go into the audition panel.
That's great.
Yeah. And then you go in and you sing 1 or 2 pieces. Usually you pick the first piece, and then they say thank you very much and you go off. Then you wait and you get a letter to say, we'd like to invite you to a second round, or unfortunately this time you've been unsuccessful, or, we've heard enough for now. So then I received a letter saying, we'd like you to come for a second round, please. This is the same day, later that day. So make sure that you have the whole day booked out for this audition, maybe even book a hotel the night before or the night after. And then I went back up and I practiced with the accompanist again, because I think the accompanist had changed the second time round. And then I went in and I sang my other piece, and then they asked me to do some oral skills, listening skills, sight reading. And I know that not every conservatoire does that, but Cardiff does. And then we had a little chat. We just had an interview about my interests, where I was from, where I studied, and why I wanted to study there.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing and so helpful for students to know. Now, I was always under the impression that it was unlikely you'd get in when you were so young, so you must have really loved your voice. Tell us a little bit about the maturing of your voice and what it's like to go to conservatoire, and since that point.
I think I was quite young to be getting in, really. I was 17 when I auditioned and 18 when I started, which is quite young. There were a lot of people in my year who were a few years older than me, some still my age and some a fair bit older. So there was definitely a step up from Sixth Form, and especially performance-wise, because it's a performance-based course. My singing teacher, Lorna Anderson, was epic, and I basically had no concepts, really. I had a basic outline, but no proper idea about technique. I just kind of sang and that was it. I didn't really think about any of those things before going to conservatoire. And it definitely hit another gear when I started to study there, and my voice became fuller, more vibrant. And that happens with age as well. It's a long process, and it is an ongoing process. I was 18 when I started. I'm 24 now, and I'm still going with it. When I was in third year, I had my tonsils removed. And that was a massive change as well. The amount of support that the conservatoire gives you during that time is insane. And they just say, take your time, come back when you're ready. And that is what you need, basically. So conservatoire was massive growth, both as a singer and as a human being, as a person. And it's 4 years, that course. So a bit longer than most university courses. But when it comes to singing, I think that's a good thing because it takes time.
Definitely. That is so fantastic, and also so good to hear about the amount of support you had. And that's often something students ask about university or conservatoires or wherever they're going off to. And it's worth saying, what support will be available. So that's really fantastically helpful. So since finishing at the conservatoire, what have you been up to? So tell us a little bit about that, because our students often say, where will this lead me? And they don't know what goes on after that course. So tell us what you've been up to.
So it's different for everyone, really. The usual path would be to do 4 years undergraduate, well, or 3 years if you're at a university, and then 2 years postgrad, and then 2 years, I think, on an opera course. And some people take breaks in between all of those different periods of study. What I did was I graduated and then I studied abroad for a year with the European Opera Academy, which is an academy that links the Royal Welsh College in the UK. That's the only one I know of in the UK that is linked to other conservatoires in Europe.
And where did you go?
But for the first half of the year, I was lucky to be accepted into 2 places. So the first half of the year, I went to Geneva and studied at the Haute École there. And then the second half of the year, I went to Florence and studied at the Conservatorio di Musica Luigi Cherubini, which was an awesome experience and really helped my languages. And it was just amazing to live abroad and study there. So after that, I came back. I decided I loved Cardiff so much that I wanted to move back here. Then I needed to get a job because I actually applied for postgrad and I didn't get in anywhere, which is totally normal. And it happens.
That's
and I just wasn't ready yet.
Yes.
And that's fine. So I got a job with Welsh National Opera. It's a new internship with WNO called a vocal animateur, which is essentially training how to be a workshop leader and run music in the community as well. So my training includes working with the WNO community choir, the WNO youth opera program that they have there, and going into schools and developing and running workshops for schools, and also going into hospitals to perform for the patients there.
That sounds so interesting. I think also that's really exciting for students to know that you can do this course. You might not get into postgrad, but it might not be the right time. And actually the different careers that you can do from this is just brilliant to hear about. So did your parents have a musical background? Had you come across this kind of life before? Tell us about that.
So before all of this, my family isn't particularly musical. My dad plays the guitar a little bit, but that's the extent of it. We didn't really know about conservatoires. I was in primary school when I started the violin. I think I was 8. And the first I'd always loved singing, and performing. I always wanted to be an actress, actually. But then a letter came home one day at my primary school saying, would your child like to learn trumpet or violin? And I was like, well, trumpet's all so I want to play the violin, Mum. And then when I went to high school, I joined the choir because I loved to perform. And then the head of music there suggested I should get singing lessons because I had something to work with. I'd say we're quite a creative family. But yeah, we hadn't really had any idea about conservatoire. And I think I had to try and explain what that was, especially to my grandparents. It was like a specialist university so that I can study performing music.
That is very cool and such an exciting insight. Now, if you were back in year 12, kind of roll back the years, if you were in year 12 and you weren't sure about what to do, what would your hints and tips be?
apply to universities and to conservatoires, because it keeps your options open. And then if you find out that you don't get into a conservatoire and that's what you really wanted to do, you can still wait until next year. People take massive gaps in between studying, performing. And the other option is, if you don't get into a conservatoire but you still really want to go and study, now's the time. Go to a university that you really love as well. So keep your options open. And I would say to try and keep your inspiration up. If you don't feel like singing or practicing your instrument that day, perhaps watch an opera or a concert online. There are loads of different platforms, and try and keep your spirit up that way. What I've done is create a virtual concert online, a live concert with my boyfriend. He plays clarinet. So we do a virtual concert every Tuesday, which is really fun. And it's a mixture of things. It's musical theatre, opera, a bit of jazz, because that's what he does, and Welsh song, all sorts of stuff. Delve into new things. Look into things that you thought, oh, I never thought I would sing a Hungarian song. Let's have a look at some Hungarian.
That's really, really cool. Thank you so much for that. That's great.
Fab.